Next up is the question, why do histamine symptoms get better in menopause? We're going to answer that today and also answer an additional question around why they may get worse during perimenopause. I get that question actually more often. Both are very important and both are definitely possible. So to answer these questions and to really understand, we'll talk about the estrogen and histamine connection, and then the hormonal fluctuations that take place in perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause. So let's break it down. First, we will start with, let me share my screen. Understanding this estrogen histamine cycle. So as estrogen rises, it stimulates mast cells to release histamine, and excess histamine or histamine actually stimulates ovaries to make estrogen. And remember about the bucket example that you've learned about in the blog article, and even the reasons in the blog article that I go over of why histamine is necessary. We got to remember that histamine is not all bad, and estrogen most definitely is not all bad. We need both. They have essential functions. It's when they get out of balance or when that bucket overflows. And so as the cycle moves forward, for those of you who like the deeper science here, estrogen stimulates the ovaries to make, or histamine stimulates ovaries to make more estrogen, and then estrogen actually downregulates the enzymes that clear out histamine. So your bucket has a harder time emptying, and then that uncleared histamine further stimulates estrogen. So that cycle can go round and round. And for some, progesterone can really stabilize histamine. And of course, with PMDD, there's a unique kind of progesterone relationship there. So why would these symptoms get worse in perimenopause and potentially better in menopause? This is just a simple chart I grabbed from Google Images about what can happen to the hormones throughout these hormonal transitions. So during the perimenopausal years, this estrogen is really fluctuating up and down pretty wildly. It can be kind of this random wild roller coaster. And so people can be responding to the increases in estrogen, and then especially with hormone sensitivity, like in PMDD, the withdrawal of estrogen and how that impacts our brain chemicals. And then progesterone is quicker to decline. That decline actually happens faster. And so that creates an imbalance between the progesterone levels and estrogen. Some people use the term estrogen dominance. I don't really like that term. I prefer the term symptoms of estrogen excess. And someone can have symptoms of estrogen excess relative to progesterone, even if estrogen isn't really high, or it could be the case that estrogen is high. And of course, PMDD is not caused by a hormonal imbalance. It's caused by the brain sensitivity to the hormonal shifts. However, hormonal imbalances or these kind of disruptions in hormone metabolism can worsen histamine issues and other issues that can exacerbate PMDD. So that's an important distinction. So in summary, progesterone is declining faster than estrogen, increasing that discrepancy between the two. And then estrogen's on that roller coaster ride, which can trigger symptoms in certain people. And then after perimenopause, postmenopause, those estrogen levels are much, much lower. This definitely isn't a perfect chart here, but they're much, much lower, more stable. And then those spikes are no longer driving that histamine release. Now, remember back to that bucket that there are a lot of other things that contribute to histamine intolerance. Let's see where I have that bucket. So all these factors can play a role, and then there can be genetics that impact our enzyme production and how we clear out the histamine. So it's never only about hormones. They're just one factor to consider, but hopefully that helps to understand why things might get worse with histamine intolerance and connecting with PMDD or perimenopause, and then a little bit better later. So if you have questions, feel free to use the Ask Us Anything question form. Shoot us that question over, and we're always here to help.